Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's BIC webinar on safety and operational excellence with industrial wireless applications. I'm Mark Herzog with BIC Magazine, and it's my pleasure to introduce today's webinar, and a big thanks goes out to Aspirations for sponsoring it. I want to introduce our speakers. Chris Witte, Senior Vice President of BASF Freeport, and Keith Dicharry, Process Control and Automation Director of BASF North America. Chris and Keith, take it away.
Hey, good afternoon, folks. This is Chris Witte here. I want to thank you for taking your time today to talk about wireless applications and what we are doing here in North America and worldwide as well. I want to take a little bit of an opportunity first to introduce you to BASF and talk a little bit about that. But first, why wireless? Why are we doing wireless? And why are we here today? BASF feels strongly that safety is not intellectual property. So when we see an application or we see an opportunity to share an idea or ideas that we feel that can make our industry safer, we want to get out and talk about that with our colleagues in the industry. So our top priority, of course, is safety and security, and we think that the wireless systems that we have and we'll talk about today can go a long way towards making our plants more safe and more secure. And so we wanted to share that. Obviously, along with wireless systems, we'll talk a little bit about operational excellence, and operational excellence then means more asset reliability and asset integrity, so there's a safety relations there. And then we'll talk also about our expectations for the future about automation and how they might relate to our workforce going forward. So what we're doing right now within BASF is really the first step is to get the existing plants up to a certain standard and to apply a uniform standard across our sites throughout North America. And then as well as set the standards and the technical standards for all the greenfield plants that might be coming in the future to make sure that they come in and they're set as part of our infrastructure and part of the standards, just like a distributed control system becomes part of our future plants. Much easier to do up front than do after the fact. Obviously, a big focus on efficiency improvements for maintenance as we work to make sure that we squeeze all that we can out of the plants. And then finally, planning for the workforce of tomorrow as all of us are facing our legacy employees nearing retirement, and we see the new folks coming in, making sure that we have tools in place to ensure proper knowledge transfer and as well as take advantage of the skill set for some of the newer employees that are coming to us and will be coming to us in the next decade. So with that, just first thing, a little bit about the challenges at Freeport that we have, and in general at our Verbund sites. And our Verbund sites are our larger sites that are heavily integrated. We have two here in the U.S., one in Geismar and one in Freeport here. The main challenges we have, first is the geographical size. We have several hundred acres, over 600 acres to cover, as well as we have multiple businesses present at the site. So our job here is to make sure that we provide a platform to ensure that those plants are competitive, and so keeping all the businesses in line and making sure that we're all marching to the same beat. And some are obviously facing different business conditions and have different levels of automation and different customer interaction models that they're doing, making sure that we have a system that can relate to and support all of those systems. The first focus that we have, though, are on safety improvements. And really, for us, that's the way that we get wireless into our sites. It's very difficult to justify these projects on an ROI basis. All of us in the chemical industry coming out of the decade from 2000 and 2010, where we had tremendous challenges on profitability, know that there was quite a bit of personnel efficiencies that went into that decade, and as a result, we're all very, very lean. And so trying to justify wireless projects based upon personnel savings is a very difficult task. So what we are looking at then is using safety, security, and using the attributes of a wireless system there to justify the infrastructure, and then leverage that later on into ROI adjustments that we can make with future projects coming down the line. So the main message on this slide is really get your foot in the door with your safety and security projects first, and then you can move into the ROI projects. For us, one of the very first things that we did, and we'll talk a little bit about this more later on, is personnel safety or mustering, personnel accountability. A key message that we have is this is all under one infrastructure. What we did have a couple of years back is each individual business units, with all good intentions, were going out and leveraging in their individual units wireless systems, and we had not a coordinated, consolidated approach, not taking advantage of the economies of scale, and therefore we were getting different systems in place. So we took a step back and brought it all under one infrastructure, under one team, to make sure that we get a coordinated approach. And finally, the last thing I want to talk about is the partnership with Aspirations that we've had. When we started this, and we really started it in Port Arthur, we used our typical approach where we had multiple bid process. We received those bids and we received the wireless plans, and we saw that Aspirations presented us with quite a bit of flexibility and was able to adjust to the needs that we had. So we've partnered with Aspirations for across North America. Moving on to the next slide, I want to talk about all of the different systems that we have from as far as industrial wireless goes. And when you're presented with these, the real issue is prioritizing and deciding what you're going to go after first. Because there are limited resources, there's limited time, there's limited capital, and so what we've tried to do is really go after, as I said earlier, a safety and a security slant across our sites. First starting with video security and mustering, and then we'll be moving that then later into a mobile workforce and turnarounds and emergency notifications. One thing that we saw as soon as we put in the video security, and of course wireless cameras are a good bit less expensive than wired, is the process units took immediate advantage of that and started putting in quite a few of their own process cameras. So you really need to take, again, a consolidated approach to make sure that you're prioritizing the abilities of the system to manage what you're doing and making sure that you're using a consistent approach. The next slide talks about BASF as early adopters, and this is kind of makes us smile when we look at that because we don't necessarily always consider ourselves an early adopter. We're a relatively large company, and like many large companies, we make sure that our decisions are well thought through, and sometimes, in our eyes, doesn't make us as speedy as we would like to be. In this case, though, I think from an industrial wireless standpoint, we are an early adopter, and we've had, some risks that go along with being an early adopter. Much of that centers on education, especially when you're educating up the ladder, making sure that people are aware of what the capabilities are, what the direction is, what the strategy is, and that we have a long-term vision. And we've taken, again, we started off in rather kind of a fragmented approach, but we really backed up and made sure that we've put together cohesive teams that are looking at a system-wide approach and making sure that we're taking, from a strategic standpoint, taking a look at where we're heading and where our priorities are. But we have had some trials there. We've had some fits and starts. But I think one thing that we've done quite well here is to make sure that this group that is in charge of our industrial wireless is not really linked into our IT group. So from an organizational standpoint, we've put the organization under our engineering group. That frees up some of the traditional issues that you see when you put it in with an IT platform where it might be just cost-based or service-based, and we're really looking at an application-based approach. And so that's a different approach that we've taken, and I think it's worked well to make sure that it's organized under our engineering group versus an IT group. with that, I'll turn it over to Keith. He's going to talk a little bit about our applications and where we are in our current journey and where we're going to be going.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to take you into a little bit of a focused approach that we took at the Freeport site. As Chris mentioned earlier, we did have applications for wireless, and we did start at the Port Arthur site. And from that, we learned some lessons, and as we came to Freeport site, as Chris said, there was a lot of identification of a siloed approach or a one-off approach to executing wireless within the Freeport site. And so we took a step back, and one of the things we decided to do when we took that step back is instead of just looking at wireless applications, we wanted to take a look at a complete applications, or for a better term, an automation roadmap for the Freeport site. So we took it upon that time to conduct workshops with all the different service organizations and the production units and the business units for the Freeport site to identify what needs they had, what were the application needs, what could we actually do to help improve their jobs and improve their efficiency, reduce their time, reduce their costs. And we looked at it from a perspective of all automation. Then we actually concentrated on the area of wireless. And we looked at where can we actually get enhancements from wireless technology to automate some of these processes and some of these applications that we currently have on the site. So as we drew this total automation roadmap together, we started to look at what's the possibilities. And as Chris mentioned earlier, we took a strong focus on safety and security for the Freeport site. But identified in that workshop as well were several items that we could take advantage of as we started to implement a complete wireless infrastructure on the Freeport site. What we did know, what we did, come to a conclusion in these workshops is we had to start with a base infrastructure. And a lot of this guidance on the base infrastructure came from Aspirations. So a lot of what we did in Port Arthur, we did do again in Freeport as far as doing our site assessment. We had Aspirations come in and do a site assessment for us. And we started to look at exactly how do we want to go about implementing a wireless infrastructure that will long-term fit the needs and goals of the Freeport site, which is continuously expanding. With that, we partnered again, with Aspirations and came up with an approach to basically build from the outside in and put in an infrastructure that consisted of a loop around the site and gradually work our way in as applications would come about. So our initial thought process was once we build the infrastructure for a total site wireless system, that immediately applications would start to flood. And boy, were we ever right, because as soon as we got in the security cameras and we started doing the mustering stations, just about every plant on the Freeport site had an application that they wanted us to address with the wireless infrastructure. So let's take a look at what our concept was, or the concept that we worked together with Aspirations on to form the Freeport wireless infrastructure. And we kind of look at it as a wireless umbrella. What we wanted to be able to do is cover the entire perimeter of the Freeport site. And at the same time, we want to put in a system that was expandable enough as well as robust and reliable and secure. With the Aspirations technology that they were able to give to us, we were able to realize a system that basically blanketed the entire Freeport site and started the process of where anything we did in any plant, even the remote areas of the plant, would be covered under this basic ionosphere. So I'm going to get into a little bit of a detail about what were the benefits that we saw going in with an Aspirations wireless system on the Freeport site. One of the key issues we deal with in process control and automation, especially in this day and age, is the security level of our systems, with all the issues that go on with cybersecurity. So one of the big things that happened, and I'm going to go back to the Port Arthur site, one of the big things happened when we implemented Aspirations wireless at the Port Arthur site is we did a very rigorous amount of penetration testing on the Aspirations system. This testing was designed by internal BASF personnel who work in cybersecurity day in and day out. And the testing was to provide a level of security and a level of reliability of the entire ION system that was implemented at Port Arthur. Well, we extended that as we came over to Freeport. And we started to look at that same approach from a secure, reliable system. And that's what we've basically achieved through Aspirations wireless ION system. So there's several components that lie into what Aspirations does for us, and I won't go into every detail of it, but I want to talk about a few of the items. When you look at the ionosphere, what you're basically bringing into your plant is you're bringing not just a wireless system, but you're bringing a management data service system. It's got workflow. It's got security. It's got monitoring capability and maintenance capability. It's wide open. It allows you to have multi-applications from multi-third-party suppliers. When we get down to the level of the actual field devices itself, when you look at the ionizers that exist for Aspirations, they basically enable you to have multi-protocol, multi-vendor, wireless sensors. It allows you to hook any devices, whether it's as identified in the slides, the Motorola handhelds. It also allows you to have any type of handheld to be able to utilize in your field. We use Motorola in Port Arthur. We have other sites right now that are going to Mesa. There are several different brands. It's not dependent upon any particular vendor. The other thing we've been able to do, and one of the things that's very beneficial to us from Aspirations, is the WiMAX video, which is what we currently use within the security cameras around the perimeter of the Freeport site. One of the other things I want to mention from Aspirations is the ION network management services. This is the capability to provide us on the BASF staff on site in Freeport analysis, visualizations, alerts, alarms, detection of anything that possibly could be going wrong through security. As you look at our wireless video, and again, we're talking about the WiMAX, basically you're seeing cameras from all different manufacturers that Aspirations is able to supply for us, meeting all regulatory options. The capabilities that exist within our Aspirations software package for this is we have object detection, motion detection, face detection capabilities that all amount on the camera. In addition, we also have all maintenance features from the camera system. So any alerts, any type of compromise to our cameras that exist around the perimeter, we immediately get alerts to it.
Yeah. So I'll take the next slide. This is Chris. We're going to talk about safety, and again, that's, as I stated up front, that's the reason why we're here, is because we believe that the wireless applications from a safety and security standpoint is going to be a large wireless systems is going to be a large enabler for us to improve our safety systems. So one of the things I want to talk about is our mustering system. As Keith said, we started off really with security and used security to get a donut, we called it, or a ring around the site to get a wireless system installed there. From there, what we wanted to do was move to a mustering system and to monitor worker and asset locations, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Obviously, then from there, our plan is to move it into other ROI and asset reliability-based systems, but of course they have a safety link to them. If you can run your plants more reliable, then your risk of incidents is reduced. And so we're leveraging the same infrastructure for both the safety and the security. We'll then move that into leveraging it in for operator mobility and some of the other applications that you saw earlier in the presentation. But the thing I really wanted to talk about first is about mustering. I've been in the industry now for over 25 years, and one thing that we always see in our drills and in our real life situation is accounting for personnel. It's a very difficult task, and you'll see when there are unfortunate incidents that happen out there, that's of course one of the first things that you want to do is where are the people and are they safe? We had systems in place, but we always, when we drilled, we always came up with things that could be improved with them, and they were manual systems for the most part that relied upon in and out boards and people in the buildings making sure they're keeping an accurate count of things. So one thing that we're really excited about with what we just moved into is the mustering system. And so what we're using here is the mustering system. We have location tags, and these are wireless systems that are located throughout the site. And they're basically where we had mustering points before. But now we have the capability of when folks have to muster and they show up at a location, they scan their ID badge at that location, and we've got that synced up with our security software for folks that have access to site. And as in the Emergency Operations Center, then we can get a very quick list of who has not shown up at the various mustering points or the shelter-in-place points that we have. And from there, then we can get an accounting for people that are missing, and we can go then to start to make sure that they're safe. And then again, that's one of your first things that you want to do in an incident, and the faster that you can do that, the better off you are in making sure that you get people moved out of harm's way. And so we're really excited about the system, and it's one of the primary reasons we want to talk about it, because we believe the mustering system is going to be a major improvement to the systems that are in place in general out in the chemical industry right now for accountability and tracking. It also then relieves some of the burdens in the Emergency Operations Center when you have an automated system like that, where others can focus on other issues that might be arising as a result of the incident that you have. So the immediate need is to locate your people. Are they safe? It's our highest priority. It's the first question we always ask at the Emergency Operations Center, where, what direction is the wind? Where are the people? Are they safe? Are they accounted for? And with this new system linked into our security system on site, we can get an exception report up pretty quickly. We're in the early stages of it. It's still being piloted. We've run a couple of drills. There's some things that we're improving on it when we do run those drills, but in general we found it to be a very good system for coordinating with our security system to get an exception report, and we'll continue to work on that. One other thing that we're thinking about then is when we have turnarounds or we have major projects, how then can we make the system expandable to make sure that we can account for a large number of folks that might be on our site that aren't on the site from a daily basis. And we think this mustering system and how to expand that mustering system is the next logical step that we should look at. One thing that's a little controversial, but something that we're piloting and in the very early stages of piloting, is the personnel tag or personnel locator. Of course, the first thing that you'll ask yourself after you get the exception report is, where are they? And so with this personnel tag that we're piloting here, we can use our Aspirations system to triangulate and get a general location of where people are or where they were last, so that then we can go and look for them. We don't have the folks that are trying to track them down. We can pinpoint their location better and go in there and get to them as need be. Of course, there's issues with that. Once you start to tell people that they're going to be wearing a tag that we can locate them, there are some concerns around that. But what we've said is, when we've talked to our HR and our legal folks, we only turn it on when there is an incident at certain points, and we will limit who has access to that information. But ultimately, what we're telling our employees, and we will tell our employees as we expand it beyond the pilot phase, is that we look at this as the same as PPE. We'll look at it the same as earplugs or safety glasses or respirators or hard hats. This is going to be PPE, and really the questions we're going to ask those folks is, if we were to ask your loved ones at home, do you want us to be able to track you down if there's an emergency? And the answer is going to be yes. And then, of course, do you want your fellow colleagues out there to know directly where you are, or do you want them to be exposed to an incident for a longer period of time? And of course the answer to both those questions is yes. And so while there will be some resistance to overcome this personnel tag, we believe that's also the next step in a mustering system to make sure that we can have real-time information on where people are and making sure that they're safe. So Keith?
All right, we'll talk a little bit about results to date on some of the activities that Chris and I have mentioned. If we look at it across the board, if you look at the ION video security and our mustering stations, we've basically increased the safety to our employees, and we've seen a drastic improvement in our ability, as Chris said, to track where our employees are in critical situations. From the operations side, on operation efficiency, I mean, through mobility devices that we've implemented, we've increased the effectiveness of operator rounds and the accuracy of that data they report back on rounds. No longer writing it on data sheets and transferring from one hand to the next. We now have up to the second data as they record it in the field to our board operators. We look at it from a maintenance standpoint. If you look at it, we've had several applications where we've gone out and installed wireless devices, which is a lot less expensive than traditional wiring of devices in the field. This gives us much more data points on critical pieces of equipment, which has helped us on increasing the productivity of our equipment assets out in the field. From the turnaround aspect, we saw major improvements from our turnarounds over in the Port Arthur site by basically affecting where our components are and being able to track that up to the second results from across the site. So now no delays in finding out at a turnaround meeting 5 o'clock in the afternoon exactly where the statuses are. It's up to date during the day, and that helps impact and improve our scheduling. The other things we look at too is trying to improve our maintenance and our capabilities within the maintenance scheduling and planning portion of it. Operators in the field with mobility devices are able to basically access SAP, enter in a work order, enter in a notification, and immediately get the assistance as they see things happening in the field. This is increasing our reaction time. This is also increasing our capabilities within the scheduling ranks. If you look at from where extending wireless, where do we want to go? Well, as we talked about earlier, more and more applications come up every day from the different plants within the Freeport site. So there's more requests for different areas of mobility and using mobile devices. Maintenance wants mobile devices now to be able to do and track what they're touching, what they're working on in the field. From an instrumentation standpoint, they want immediate download of data that they're doing in field checks and field calibrations. All this is possible through some of the mobile devices. From the standpoint of mustering, I mean, the site in Freeport is continuously growing. There's more and more expansion that happens. This means more and more employees on the site. And with the infrastructure that we've already established, the importance that we have for employee safety is going to be the grassroots for that is already in place, and we can expand as we expand the site. We want to provide additional safety and security benefits, and we want to try to make sure that everything we do with wireless has a focus on three key issues: safety, security, and efficiency of our people. One of the key aspects we try to look at within BASF is protecting our most valuable assets, and that's our people. If we look at it from a big data standpoint, and in the automation world, we're always challenged what to do with this data. Well, there's new devices every day that enable us, as I talked about earlier with the asset effectiveness, there's more devices we can actually put, more data points we can put. We can actually achieve doing vibration analysis wirelessly on large compressors and motors. We can actually do temperature and pressure profiles on towers that increase our capability to make optimizations of our processes. All this is a result of being able to have wireless and an effective and reliable wireless system. The other side of it, the other point that I wanted to make is around CapEx. Just as we've done in turnarounds where we've been able to track our supplies coming in, we're able to have up-to-the-minute updates rather than waiting for periodic meetings. We want to do the same thing on our large capital projects. We want to have that capability of mobile devices in the field, tracking equipment coming in, tracking everything that's in our laydown yard, so there is efficient and effective data so that we don't impact our schedules.
Okay, so just to kind of wrap it up from a lessons learned, and I touched on it coming back. So many opportunities for safety, automation, and security, and the main message we want to send is that's at least how we did it, is to lead with those safety, security projects where you don't have to justify an ROI. It's going to be very difficult after having coming out the first decade with everybody very lean to commit to personnel savings or efficiency improvements. But I think if you put the systems in place from a safety and a security standpoint and then use that infrastructure as a step then into the ROI projects, then folks will see the additions and the benefits that come out of that. And then with the natural attrition that's going to come in the future, and we bring on the new workforces who's more familiar with these automation tools and they pick those up, it's not only a recruiting tool for you, but it's also a way of naturally building the efficiency and the knowledge transfer from the beginning. And then from there, if there are efficiency gains to be had, you don't have to do it during using a reduction in force, but you can do it naturally through attrition as you see the efficiency gains that come out of having an automated system. One thing that, of course, I touched on with the multi-business sites, don't create siloed systems. Make sure you have a common approach, not only across the site, but across your corporation. Do it from a larger strategic picture. There's a lot of well-meaning folks out there in the units that are very anxious and eager to get going, and so holding them back can be difficult while you get that system in place, but then you'll reap the rewards if you've standardized the approach from the beginning. And then, of course, the infrastructure support. For us, what we've started off, since we have not the in-house knowledge, is we've used Aspirations remotely to help us with the infrastructure support. And as we grow in our systems, we can continue to leverage that relationship. Finally, on our last slide, and then we'll open it up to Q&A, there's a little tab at the bottom of your screen there if you want to submit a question. We have a lot of dreams and aspirations. Once you start getting these systems in place and you see that the wireless is there for you, there's quite a bit you can do from an asset reliability, communications, asset tracking. There's no limitations. It's really a matter of really strategically prioritizing what your roadmap looks like for your individual situation. And with that, our end goal is perfect safety, operational excellence, and we will open it up for questions.
Thanks, Chris. As Chris mentioned, you can click on the Q&A widget at the bottom of your screen and submit questions. I have a few here already that I want to pose to Chris and Keith. So to wrap this up with your lessons learned, but what was the most significant factor in your successful implementation?
Well, I think, of course, the partnership that we had and making sure that we had the standardized approach and really taking our time in making sure that we started off small. We didn't try and eat the entire site at once. We started off with the security project on the outside. We learned with that. Then we stepped into piloting within the ring around the site, and then from there we could step into putting wireless across the entire site. So, with a 600-plus acre site that we started off trying to get the entire site, I think we would have had quite a bit more growing pains. So I think, having a strategic approach and then taking a stepwise phased approach is really important.
How did the team how did your workforce adopt this? Were they, open to it? Did you have any challenges in the adoption phase of equipping your team?
Want me to answer that, Keith, or you got it?
Well, you talking the operational team?
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Chris handle the operational team.
Well, there's folks out in your units that are more tech savvy and they're the ones that like to play with the gadgets, and I think getting those people involved and engaged early is going to be critical to making sure that you're successful. And then once others see the advantages of it, then it moves naturally through the organization. It's not something that you can really force in or push down on people.
I think one of the things that benefited the Freeport site were the workshops I talked about earlier in the presentation. That ability to bring them into an environment where they can freely talk about what they want to achieve, and then show them, through Aspirations help, show them what the potentials are for the applications, what we can actually use these devices for effectively, and why we took the path we did. I think that helped get buy-in.
So along those lines, you showed some of the handhelds that you started off with your implementations, but I did get a question about for your mobile applications, specifically what devices are you using beyond that, and are they intrinsically safe requirements?
Yes, they are intrinsically safe requirements. We do have those. The piloted mobility project that is currently going on at the Geismar site is currently using Mesa as their handheld device of choice. We have several different products that's been used across the globe. We have Mesa's also being used in Lou, in Germany, and we have a different device that's actually used for the Antwerp cracker. I can't remember exactly what handheld they're using, but it's a different model than what we've had. But really and truly, it gets down to the functionality of the actual device, because from an Aprion standpoint, it doesn't make a difference what the device is.
So we've hit on that. This is you use this for your operational system, but and you mentioned getting IT involved. Can you talk a little bit more about your approach of getting IT involved, and at what level did they, and how they are going to be involved going forward with your additional projects that you're working on?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned that one reason for our success is we really, from a manufacturing standpoint, carve this out underneath our engineering organization. So it's a different approach when you're talking about applications that are working out in the field. In our units, it's a different set of critical opportunities for success. And so I think that's really the thing that we've done. Of course, our IT group is involved in it and engaged in it, but really we've set up an organization of experts within our engineering group that is really following these projects along.
So whenever we approach these projects, we talk about the security and reliability of wireless, because it's a big deal. So Keith, this might be for you. Wireless is open SSL, so how did you approach, or how did BASF handle the security around these projects?
Okay, well, it kind of relating back to the previous question, the first step we did is actually take IT out of the equation. And the main reason being is there's a big disconnect, at least within BASF, I'm sure it's like that at other companies, between the set path, the set targets that the IT department does in its implementations versus what what the engineering and operations departments do in their jobs. So basically, what we did is when we evaluated, when Chris mentioned earlier that we did a normal BASF evaluation and bid process over at the Port Arthur site. A lot of what that set specification was, and a lot of what our set testing was, off-site as well as on-site, dealt around security and being able to penetrate this wireless system. Fortunate enough, we have some guys with an extreme amount of IT background that actually worked in my group, my department, in the engineering department, who I would say put Aprion through the ringer on security testing and penetration testing of their ION system. There is no system that is not penetratable, but by all stretches, when we did our evaluation at the time we did it, Aprion came out far above the rest as far as being secure and lacking penetration capability.
I think it's important too to stress that we have not hooked these systems into our distributed control systems.
Absolutely.
And we won't see that in any of the near future. This is a standalone system, so that's obviously one other way that you ensure that you can control the security of the system.
And as a company, we follow the ISA layered approach for our security on our control systems that actually run the plant. So just as Chris is saying, there's segregation between the two.
So you went into a lot of detail around your personnel safety and the mustering solution that we worked on. I am getting a couple of questions about contractor. So are you tracking your contractors within the mustering and personnel tracking?
Yes, we are. So they're when they come on site, we don't handle the safety of contractors any different than we do BASF employees. So we when they're badged and they have a badge to come on site, and when they have their mustering location to go to, it's the same system. It goes in through our security software programs that we have for folks gaining access to the site, and the mustering stations then compare in the same way. So we get the exception report.
And as a part of the tracking personnel and mustering, are you doing anything around access control, or do you have plans, at the gated access control solutions?
Go ahead, Keith.
No, I was just going to say it is one of the things that we do have on our list of applications that we want to address, where it makes sense with wireless. And Chris may have more comments as far as what he's looking at from his project budget standpoint, but it is one of the applications that we identified, and we are, it's one of them on the list.
Yeah. So, I mean, just from a resource standpoint, we've got to prioritize it among all the projects that we have. We've got the mustering, which is essentially filled in a large portion of our site. We'll be using operator mobility pilots to fill in the rest of the site from a wireless standpoint, and then we can move from there. And it's really more about budgeting not only the resources from a capital standpoint, but also the people that are available to implement the projects.
With the handhelds that we showed, the non-portable, non-handheld wireless devices, are those using battery power?
Yes. I mean, the handheld devices currently use battery power. They actually have a docking station and a charging station as well. It's rechargeable batteries that they typically use. Depends, again, on what you're getting, what brand you're getting. I mean, we even have some potential applications that are going away from handhelds and actually going to more of a tablet. It's another step. Of course, we got to meet area classifications with that, but every handheld we've dealt with so far has been chargeable batteries.
Okay. There's a lot of questions that we haven't gotten to here, but we wanted to keep this efficient. I think we've shared a lot of information. Do you want to show them my contact?
Yes.
Thank you, Chris and Keith, for your time today. If you have additional questions, feel free to email me, Sarah Prinster, at my email address, and we appreciate all of your attendance today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Have a safe day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you attending this BIC webinar, and it will be posted at bicwebinars.com. And any of the questions that were not specifically addressed today, the Aspirations team will attempt to answer them individually by email. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.